Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I have come with another class, and in today we'll discuss an entirely new portion of the subject itself. Today we'll start toxicology. Toxicology is the more interesting part of forensic medicine where we'll talk about different type of poisons, their classification, mechanism of action, their presentation in a live human being, and in case fatality occurs, what is the cause of death and how in postmortem will detect that specific poison as the cause of death and how to preserve samples to detect those poisons. So toxicology is very important because poisoning is will come to you in your career as a doctor in different times as different emergencies, and after today, after forensic medicine, again you will encounter poison in your medicine subject. So, and I hope, and personally I feel this is a more interesting and intriguing part of forensic medicine than the regular chapters of death, asphyxia, etc. So, without further ado, we'll start today's class. The first chapter is general toxicology. Here we will talk about the poison's definition, classification, factors modify this action, etc. So at the end of today's class, I will expect that all of you will be able to define a poison correctly, classify the poisons according to their mode of action, their mechanism of action, or their intent of action, and will be able to enumerate the different factors which influence the action of poisons and how they work. So toxicology is a very old subject. It came down from the 3000 BC in the papyrus of a pharaoh Menes I of Egypt. In his papyrus, there was first the mention of poison. After that, poisons were dealt with in Egypt extensively. We all know about the Queen Cleopatra as she used bite of an Egyptian neurotoxic snake to kill herself. So poisons, snake venom, they were dealt with Egypt as an method of execution or suicide. In India, Atharva Ved, we find mention of poison. Charak Sanhita has talked about common poisons, their treatment. But the father of modern toxicology, that crown goes to Orfila. Orfila was a Spanish physician and who dealt with toxicology extensively. He wrote a book about poisons, their common poisons, their diagnosis, and how to detect them clinically. And there was a case in 1840 where a person was killed by arsenic. At that point of time, to detect arsenic, the test was done, is called Marsh test. So the Marsh test in that case was negative. So there was a doubt that whether arsenic was indeed the poison. So Orfila was called onto that test, and there he performed the test and got the result positive. So he developed a more scientific and better way of detecting arsenic. That's why he is called the father of modern toxicology. So what is poison? Actually, the better question should be what is not a poison? Because in true sense, all material, all drugs, all chemicals, everything that are around us are capable of killing us if given a sufficient quantity. So they can be poison. In fact, the air we breathe in, oxygen is the most important gas in our life. We are alive because of oxygen. That oxygen also can kill yourself. If a person breathes in 100% oxygen for a prolonged period of time, it causes some neurotoxicity. There can be cerebral edema and the person can die. with prolonged exposure to 100% oxygen in high pressure. So that is the thing. All things are poison. So only the dose determines whether it is poison or not. So have you encountered any poison today? Have you dealt with it? Have you felt it? Used it? We all have. What is? Just I said air. How air can cause death? By causing air embolism. If a empty syringe is put into your vein and air is injected, and that will form a bubble in your blood. If that bubble gains access to the pulmonary circulation via heart, it can cause hemorrhage into the lungs. And if it is injected directly into neck, then there are chances that it will go into the cerebral circulation. There it will cause intracerebral hemorrhage by bursting of capillary. So air can cause death. Breathing in poisonous gases will cause death. Poison. So, but what law thinks of it? Law thinks, in the legal point of view, any substance will be designated as poison if it is likely to kill or endanger life or cause an injury. That means here any substance will be poison if it can be used to kill someone or cause injury to someone. So here the intent is most important. If it is used, if that substance is used for killing anybody, it will be taken as an act of poisoning. This intent of action is termed as mens rea, and this is called mens rea, and the poison act itself is called actus rea. So mens rea is important in case of poisoning. Now for exam purpose, how will you define poison? So any substance, solid, liquid or gas, which on, so any substance, this is important, any form which on gaining entrance into the body or contact with a body part will cause ill health, disease or even death. So in simple words, poison is defined as substance in any form which on entry into the body by any route will cause ill health, disease or even death. Okay, and another point you can mention in the definition is in small quantity, because large quantity or of the medicines that we take will be poisonous. So poison again will modify the definition as poison is defined as any substance which in any form on entering the body through any route in a small dose can cause ill health, disease or even death. So that is how we will define poison for exam purpose. So now we know what is poison. Now we'll discuss what is toxicology. Toxicology is the branch of science that deals with properties, action, toxicity, fatal dose, fatal period, detection, estimation, and interpretation of the toxicological analysis. Toxicological analysis means it is the chemical test to detect poison in the body fluids and treatment of the poison. So how, what is the poison is action, mechanism of action, fatal dose, fatal period, how to detect in the body fluid by chemical methods, the toxicological analysis, interpretation of that report and treatment of the poison. This entire thing will come under the broad heading of toxicology. What But what is our role in it? In forensic medicine, we deal with forensic toxicology. So forensic toxicology is the study of the medical and legal repercussions or the legal consequences of poisoning. So if a harmful chemical enters into a human body, it will cause poisoning. So its medical aspects and the legal aspects. We will deal with them both. That is our domain, forensic toxicology. Now, in the earlier definition of toxicology, I used two terms, fatal dose and fatal period. The fatal dose is equivalent to the LD50 or the lethal dose 50 what you have taught, what you have read in the pharmacology. That is, in a test population, the dose of the poison which will kill more than 50% or half of the population. That is LD50 or fatal dose. Fatal period is it is the average time between the administration of poison to the death of the subject in most of the individuals. That is, in the community medicine, in a data set, you have read about mean, median, mode. So technically, in a test population, definitely these are all animal studies, not our human studies. So these fatal dose and fatal period all are done from animal studies. So in a test population, a fatal dose is given, most of the samples will die. So the time period between the administration of the poison and the death, they are collected, and from all the data, the mode is taken as the fatal period. Okay. What is the therapeutic index? Therapeutic index is the ratio between the LD50 and ED50. LD50 is the dose at which 50% of the population dies. ED50 is the dose at which it elicits the required pharmacological effect in 50% of the population. Their ratio is the therapeutic index. So a high therapeutic index means that lethal dose is more or effective dose is less. That means the range, the safety of the drug is more. Over a longer dose range, the drug is safe. For example, paracetamol. Paracetamol is safe in 520 gram or 1 gram, and it is fatal after 4 gram of daily. So it's not fatal, harmful over 4 gram. So it is a safe drug because the therapeutic index is more. If the therapeutic index is less, that means the difference between LD50 and ED50 are less. They are very close together. So the range of safety is less. So that is the importance of therapeutic index. Now we have defined poison. We have learned the required definitions. What is fatal dose? What is fatal period? Now we will move on to the next section of today's class. That is, how do we classify the poisons? The poison classification will be under two headings according to the circumstances, that means the intent of use, and the second one is to the mechanism of actions. Intent of use, poisons are broadly two types: homicidal, suicidal, and their different uses. So what is a homicidal poison? What are the different criteria of a homicidal poison? The homicidal poison, they should be easily available and cheap in price. However, if you really want to kill somebody, the price should not be a factor. It should be colorless, tasteless, and odorless, and it should be capable of being administered with food and drinks. That means it should be easily mixed into a food or drink, and they should not be uh, a specific taste or odor that will alert the individual drinking that drink or eating the food that there is something wrong in it. it should be toxic obviously, and the sign and symptoms they should appear late so that the person who is giving the food can flee from the scene. And if the sign and symptom appear late, it will be difficult for people to suspect that person. Feature should resemble a natural disease. That is the most factor. If it resembles a natural disease, then the treatment will be done for that disease, and no one would think about that poisoning can be a case. No significant antidote or treatment should be there. So even if it is poisoning in diagnosed, it should be difficult to treat so that the fatality can be ensured. There should be no specific postmortem finding, so that even in postmortem that poison should not be detected. No proper method of detection or poison rapidly destroyed in the body. So these are the criteria that the ideal homicidal poison should have. That doesn't mean that the poison which is used for homicidal intent should have all of those factors. It's not possible to find a poison which have all of these factors. Okay, so since ages, arsenic has been a homicidal poison of choice because earlier it is tasteless, colorless, odorless, easily available. It can be mixed in a hot drink. It is sparingly soluble in water, but with increasing temperature, solubility increases. Should it is definitely toxic. Sign and symptoms in chronic poisoning they appear late. They resemble in acute arsenic poisoning. It resembles cholera. Chronic poisoning it mainly comes in form of some neurological disorder or a dermatological disorder. Antidote was not available in earlier times till 19th century, and also it was difficult to detect it post-mortem. However, nowadays arsenic is not an ideal homicidal poison because we have the antidote. Treatment is successful. It's not fatal anymore. And second, arsenic is not destroyed. It remains in the body for centuries. And now we have more efficient and better methods to detect arsenic in bones. And even we have detected arsenic, traces of arsenic present in the Napoleon Bonaparte skeleton. So we know he was killed due to arsenic poisoning. So now arsenic has lost though the benefit, these benefits. So it is not no longer an ideal homicidal poison. Thallium can be an homicidal poison because it's difficult to diagnose, difficult to treat, and difficult to detect. Regular insulin, high dose of potassium, these are the things that will kill a person with any without any suspicion being arise. There is a film called Pathology. In that Pathology film, it's a very good film. This regular insulin or potassium has been used as a tool of murder. So these are in regular insulin. There will be or the only sign will be there will be a mark of injection. Other than that, it it causes death by causing intense hypoglycemia and intense hyperkalemia. So it doesn't matter. There will not be any postmortem finding. So it is not possible to diagnose the death is due to this regular insulin. Suicidal poison, it should be easily available, tasteless, a pleasant taste. Yeah, uh, if you wanna die, why die? Wow. If you wanna die, you should not be bothered with the price, but it should be pleasant taste. It's difficult to die with a horrible taste in mouth. It should be highly toxic. It should be capable of being easily consumed with food, and this is important. It should be capable of causing painless death. So the drugs of choice are usually the opium, barbiturates, potassium cyanides, or organophosphates, as these are most easily available. Organophosphate is available as the pesticides. We will deal with it in the next class. Organophosphates, they are easily available and they're highly toxic. However, taste is very bad and it does not cause painless death. That is quite painful. Oleander seeds, etc. Accidental poison, any poison can be accidental, depends on the mode of use, but one poison is always accidental, that is snake bite. Snake bite cannot be used as a homicidal tool, contrary to what the Hindi films have shown over the ages. You can't just throw snake on the person and expect the snake to bite him. Stupefying poison, the knockout drugs that causes spell of unconsciousness. Datura, cannabis, chloroform, flunitrazepam, mix of alcohol, chloral hydrate. Here the alcohol, chloral hydrate, flunitrazepam, datura. These are the drugs which are used to knock out the subject with the intent of doing something criminal activity. So they cause some sort of clouding of memory or confusion. So they can be used for sexual assault or robbery, etc. If they're used in sexual assault, they are called drug facilitated sexual assault or DFSA. And these drugs, flunitrazepam, chloral hydrate, they are called as date rape drugs, as these are the drugs which are used to spike someone's alcoholic beverage in a party. So the girl consumes the drink, she gets unconscious, then she is sexually assaulted. Next day, due to clouding of the memory and the confusion, she is not able to remember the person's name or face who has assaulted her. So that's why they are called date rape drugs. Abortifacient drugs which can cause criminal abortion, ergot, lead, oleander, Plumbata rosea plant, etc. Infanticide, arsenate, opium, tobacco, mother, etc. Cattle poisons are all heavy metals with arsenate, lead, etc. Rati or the Abrus precatorius, yellow oleander, aconite, all are used as cattle poisons. Aphrodisiac are the drugs which are used to increase libido or the sexual pleasure. These are called aphrodisiac. Arsenate, cantharides, cannabis, cocaine, these have aphrodisiac effect. So this is the classification of poison according to the method of use or the intent of use. Now will come the more prudent classification or the more important classification for us, mechanism of action. So first one is the corrosives. Corrosives are poisons which exhibit their effect by the corrosive action on the skin or mucous membrane. So they are either strong acids or alkali or can be metallic salts. Acids can be inorganic or organic. Inorganic acids are sulfuric acid, nitric acid, hydrochloric acid. Organic acids, carbolic acid, oxalic acid. So these are the acidic corrosives. Alkaline corrosives are sodium and potassium hydroxides and ammonia. So there's a difference between the activity of acids and alkali. When consumed, our esophagus, they are more efficient with dealing with acid than alkali because they have because reflux of acid from stomach into the esophagus is more common. So, but alkali is not available in stomach, so they do not reach esophagus normally. So on oral consumption, esophagus suffers more damage due to acid than alkali. Number one. Number two, acid causes coagulation of the protein. or denaturation of the protein. So the protein will denature and it will coagulate into an impermeable substance. So the in depth of penetration is less in case of acid, but alkali it causes liquefactive necrosis. So alkali will disintegrate the tissue and will go into a deeper part. So the depth of penetration is more in case of alkali than acid. This is the two difference which are clinically important for the corrosive action. That's why death due to alkali consumption is more due to the acid consumption. However, acids are more easily available as they're used as toilet cleaner. In every Indian household, acid can be found into the toilet. However, dating alkali in India is difficult, but in Western countries, alkali is more easily available because they are used as liquid detergents. And there are some metallic salts which have corrosive action like zinc chloride, ferric chloride, potassium chromate. Now the irritant. Irritant are poisons which causes irritation to the mucous membrane and thus there's increase in the mucus secretion. These are the irritant poisons. So irritant can be two types: inorganic, organic. Inorganic irritant are further classified into three types: metallic, non-metallic, metaneutral. Metallic irritants are heavy metals, your arsenic, copper, lead, mercury, silver, etc. Though chemically arsenic is not a metal, it's a metalloid. However, it is grouped together with the other heavy metals due to similarity of the action. Non-metallic irritants are usually most common that we have to read is phosphorus. Phosphorus is important as they are available. And one poison that usually have phosphorus, the rat killer. The rat poison, they have aluminum phosphide in them. So phosphorus poisoning is there due to consumption of rat poison. Mechanical irritant are the powdered glass, diamond dust, etc. You have to be freaking rich if you die of a diamond dust poisoning. So these are the inorganic irritants. Now, the organic irritants that classified into two: vegetable and animal. Vegetable irritants are Abrus tiratorius, castor seeds, proton seeds, calotropis, etc. Animal irritants are the venoms, snake venom, insect venom. These are the animal irritants. So this is the irritant poisons. Class is the systemic poisons. Systemic poisons which they elicit their effect after being absorbed into the systemic circulation. And this corrosive and irritant, their action is primarily on the mucous membrane. Cerebral poisons, on the basis of action, there are either three types. CNS depressant, which they will depress the activity of central nervous system. Alcohol, general anesthetics, opioids. CNS stimulants, they stimulate brain activity. They are amphetamine, methamphetamine, TCA, methylphenidate, etc. TCA are the tricyclic antidepressants. And the deliriums, poisons that cause delirium. What is delirium? We have dealt in forensic psychiatry. There's a clouding of consciousness and the person's has incoherent speech. So it is seen in dhatura, belladonna, cannabis, cocaine, etc. Then we have spinal poison, drug which act on the spinal is the strychnine and also D-tuboturarin. However, Turare is also classified as peripheral nervous poison. So, so poisons which act on nervous system are cerebral, spinal, peripheral nervous poison. Cerebral, three types: depressant, stimulant, deliriant, spinal poison, and peripheral nerve poison. Okay. Now, cardiovascular poison. All the what you have all the target glycosides that we have dealt with in the subject pharmacology will come under here. So the digitalis plus yellow oleander and aconite, they are the cardiovascular poisons. Asphyxians are the non-breathable or poisonous gases like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc. And also the uh, any gas which cannot be breathed. Now, hepatotoxic poisons, drugs which are primarily at on the liver, causing liver damage, phosphorus, also the copper, carbon tetrachloride, chloroform, these are the hepatotoxic poisons. Nephrotoxic, mercury, oxalic acid, cantharides, etc. And miscellaneous group, there will be food poisoning, botulism, etc. So this is the classification of poison according to their mechanism of action. So let's take a brief moment to recap because this is important. You have to understand a poison. If you want to understand how a poison acts, you must know what type of poison it is. There will be plenty of poison, and for a student, it's quite difficult to remember their mechanism of action, signs, and symptoms. So, what I tell the students, remember its place in the classification and its mechanism of action. If you know what type of poison it is and what is the mechanism of action, then if you can think rationally, you can make out all the at least the common signs and symptoms. For that, you don't need to mark up all the signs and symptoms of all these poisons. So, if I ask you what is the mechanism of action of poison of phosphorus, then you should know that phosphorus is a non-metal. It is included into the non-metallic irritants, also in the hepatotoxic. So it's an irritant poison. It will cause increased mucus secretion. There will be increased salivation, mucosal ulcers, nausea, vomiting, etc. Also, due to hepatotoxic activity, there will be jaundice and coagulation failure. As there will be liver failure, there will be coagulation failure due to uh, stopped synthesis of the coagulation factors. So there will be coagulation abnormality. So you can make out the signs and symptoms. That's what is important to know the mechanism and classification. So first are the irritant. Irritants are two types, inorganic, organic. Inorganic are three types, metal, non-metal, metallic salts. In the metal, we have the heavy metals, arsenic, copper, mercury, lead. Non-metal, we have phosphorus, metallic salt, we have ferric chloride, zinc chloride, etc. Organic irritant, two type, plant origin, animal origin. Plant origin are the vegetable irritants, Abrus precatorius, castor, proton, etc. Animal irritant are the venoms, snake venom and insect venom. Now we have the corrosives, acid, alkali. Acid, we have those sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, alkali, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide. That's it. Then the systemic poisons. Systemic poisons, first is the CNS poisons. CNS stimulant, depressant, deliriant. CNS depressants are the alcohol, opiate, commonest. CNS stimulant, commonest are amphetamines, methamphetamines, TCA, etc. Deliriant, common datura, cocaine, cannabis. Done. Then we have spinal poisons, strychnine, and peripheral nervous poison, curare. Were done with the nervous system. CVS poison or the target glycosides like digitalis. Also, yellow oleander aconite. Asphyxiant, poisonous and non-breathable gases like carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, H2S, SO2, etc. Heterodoxite, phosphorus, carbon tetrachloride or CCl4. Nephrotoxic, mercury, oxalic acid, tantharides, you have that acetaminophen or paracetamol, etc. Miscellaneous, food poison in bottles. So that's all. This is the classification of poison. You have to remember it throughout your life. This is important. Now, some other poisons which act on CNS, they are the other part. The CNS depressions, they're also known as somniferous poison or narcotic. These are just the synonym, other names. CNS depression poisons which induces sleep and alleviates pain, like opium, benzodiazepine, okay, etc. Benzodiazepine are somniferous poison. Narcotics are opium. Inebriate. Inebriate means they intoxicate and initially produce symptoms of excitement, and as you know, everything goes up has to come down, so that is followed by a stage of CNS depression, which is narcosis. Commonest in inebriant is alcohol. Delirium, which causes delirium, stage of disturbed consciousness with imaginary thoughts, delusion, hallucination, etc. Examples are dhatura, cannabis. So inebriants are the other name of CNS, are some CNS depression drugs which initially intoxicate, followed by stage of narcosis, delirium, and somniferous. Now, types of poisoning, how they act. They are either acute, chronic, subacute, or fulminant. Does that? Acute poisoning, the symptoms will appear within a day or two. Chronic poisoning, the poisoning was being done for days or months. Subacute poisoning in a period of weeks. Fulminant, the poisoning sign symptom they appear catastrophically within hours of consuming the poison. Now the third part, factors modifying action of poisons. Quantity of poison, most important. The dose is what differentiates a drug from a poison. Larger the dose, more rapid will be toxic effect. Whether the poisoning will be fulminant or acute or subacute or chronic, that will be depending on the dose. On a small dose given over a longer period, if it has a cumulative effect, that will be chronic poisoning. Larger dose can have acute poison, and a much toxic dose can have a fulminant poisoning. However, some drugs which given a larger dose causes paradoxical emesis, so the drugs is vomited out and the poisoning symptom disappears. For example, copper sulfate. Copper sulfate, if given on a much longer dose, it will have emesis. Form of poison, physical state, gas, liquid, and solid. Gas have gaseous form, has rapid onset of action, then liquid, then solid. Chemical combination, silver nitrate, if it is given with hydrochloric acid, silver nitrate will form silver chloride, which is non-poisonous. So silver nitrate, if ingested, it will react with the HCl in stomach and it will be rendered ineffective. Mechanical combination, arsenic is not soluble in water, it has to be given to something else, but in hot water the solubility increases, so it can be given in a hot drink. So these are the factors that modify the reaction. Routes of administration, inhalation of a gaseous poison has the rapidest onset of action within seconds, followed by intravenous injection, then intramuscular injection, then subcutaneous injection. After that, just injection, then application on skin. Application of open wound has more rapid onset than absorption to intestine. So rapidest onset is inhalation. condition of the body. The first one, the age of the victim. In the extremes of age, in a younger subject, in an older subject, the required fatal dose of the poison is less. A lesser amount of the poison can kill them. However, for a middle-aged and healthy young adult, the dose is to be more. Idiosyncrasy. Some drugs that have an idiosyncratic action on an individual and can kill that person, like the penicillin hypersensitivity. Penicillin is a drug but for a person who is allergic to it, even a few milligram of the penicillin can have an idiosyncratic reaction and can cause a fatal anaphylactic shock. So that's important. That's a factor. Tolerance. Tolerance is even if you take a drug in small quantities over a longer period of time, then gradually you develop tolerance to it. That means to elicit the same effect, now you have to consume larger dose of the drug. So to elicit the same effect, the dose requirement becomes larger. So that means that you have developed tolerance to that poison. Common poisons that you develop tolerance to are the drugs of abuse. That means the opium, heroin, cocaine, cannabis, alcohol. So in a novice, he can get drunk or intoxicated even after one ped or two ped, but for a seasoned drinker, he will get that amount of intoxication after his sixth or seventh or eighth ped. That means he have developed tolerance to alcohol. State of health. Yeah, that goes without saying that in a healthy young adult, the dose will be more. In a sick person, the dose will be less. Synergistic action. Some poisons which have, if given two drugs given together, they can have synergistic action, so which can kill a person. So there, the onset of action will be more rapid and the fatality will be more. Condition of the stomach and kidney. Stomach is important for cyanide because the drug used is the potassium cyanide. And first, before going into how cyanide reacts, I will tell you that contrary to what is being seen in the film, cyanide does not cause death within seconds. It takes at least 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes after to die after ingesting potassium cyanide. Second of all, potassium cyanide causes death by causing hypoxia by breaking the electron transport chain. Number three, potassium cyanide has to react with the hydrochloric acid of the stomach to form the hydrogen cyanide, which is the actual poison. Now, Brady Rasputin was the influencer of the last Caesar of Russia. Now he had many enemies in the Caesar's court, so and Rasputin was an avid vodka drinker. So one day, to kill him, his enemies they mixed potassium cyanide with the vodka. But after drinking, he survived with minor symptoms. And why? Because as he was an alcohol drinker for a longer period, he may have achlorhydria. That means there was no HCl secretion in his stomach. No HCl, so potassium cyanide never got converted to HCl, to HCN, hydrogen cyanide. So he did not die. Another factor of poisoning is re-excretion of some poison in the stomach. That is, some poisons they undergo enterohepatic circulation. That is, after stomach, from the intestine itself, they then go into the liver, and from liver that it then re-excreted into the stomach or intestine. That means they are available for absorption into the stomach or intestine for a longer period of time. And also, if even if they are given by injectable route, they can be re-excreted into the stomach. So a poison is given parenterally by intravenous injection, but it can be detected into stomach. Examples are opium, salicylic acid, arsenic, thiopental, barbiturates like barbital, etc. So gastric lavage is the stomach wash. What is being done to wash the stomach to remove whatever poison is still remain. If the drug is given in by injectable route, we usually do not perform gastric lavage because there's no point. However, in these poisons, gastric lavage should be done and some residual antidotes should be left within the stomach for a longer period of time, so that even if the drug is excreted into the stomach next day, it will be neutralized by the residual antidote and will not be absorbed into the systemic circulation again. So these are the general poisoning symptoms: sudden onset of GI symptoms, sudden onset of potential vomiting, intense abdominal pain without any reason, uh, collapse, unconsciousness, sudden onset of coma with constricted pupil, sudden onset of convulsion, delirium with dilated pupil. The sudden onset of gastrointestinal symptoms to labs, they indicate the irritant poisons like heavy metal or the corrosive poisons. Sudden onset of coma with constricted pupils, this included opium or organophosphate, they cause constriction of pupils. Sudden onset of convulsions can be due to the spinal poisons like strychnine. Delirium with dilated pupils, this is seen in case of Dhatura. It causes delirium with dilated pupils. Acute onset of paralysis caused element type, it can be caused by the peripheral nervous poisons like curare. Acute onset jaundice with hepatocellular failure in a previously healthy individual by the hepatotoxic poisons like phosphorus or copper. Sudden oliguria with proteinuria and hematuria by the nephrotoxic poisons like acetaminophen or paracetamol. Rapid onset of neurological signs in a person who is exposed to chemicals can be the neurotoxic poisons. So, on the basis of history and clinical presentation, poisoning has to be diagnosed as early as possible so the treatment can be started, because you cannot wait for the laboratory investigation reports. They will take at least a day to come, and when the reports will come, even if you diagnose the poison, by that time the person would have expired or would have progressed to a point of no return. So history is the tremendous important in a suspected case of poisoning. On the basis of history and the clinical presentation, you have to determine what is the type of poison the person has consumed, and depending on that you have to start your treatment. So the next class will discuss about what are the, on this slide itself. On this slide we will elaborate each and every point, that if this is constricted pupil with certain onset of unconsciousness or coma, what are the poisons? So that on the basis of that you will get what type of poison has been consumed, so what line of treatment you should follow. So and then in the next class we'll discuss about the treatment. So with that point of mind, with that point keeping in your mind, I will conclude today's class. I hope you have understood what I have tried to teach you: the definition of poisons, their classification and their mechanism of action, and the factors responsible modification of that action. Please go to the chapter from your book, and if you have any query or question, feel free to reach to me. You can contact me by any other way. Thank you very much for your time and patience. I will see you soon with the next part of this chapter. Thank you.